All right, good afternoon, Facebook family and friends. It says that the live video has started, but good afternoon, Facebook family and friends. It is a beautiful day that the Lord has made, Sunday. Something I've learned is softball tourneys or tournaments can legit be all day. This is the first time that we have been at a park as early as 8 something in the morning to as late as midnight. Now, granted, there were breaks between certain games and we did eat. However, after Ari played the three that were scheduled that we knew about, we were like, okay, it's time to go. And it was 2-1, right? Or did they win one?
1 and 2.
It was 1-2, 1-2, right? So yeah, won one, lost two. We thought we were through, and then we learned after that there is like a bracket. What is it called? Pool play. See, I'm learning new things every day. I'm glad I got Frank to the right of me watching this football game. But pool play started that evening, and it couldn't start until everyone from the regular tournaments got through playing. So that's your dinner time. But when I tell you it was 12:02, and we are not in Tallahassee because of travel softball, but God is good nonetheless. Super grateful for the village. Love that my parental was able to come through and support up until 8, and glad they left after that last game that they pulled it out, man. You know, it's always a good thing when you pull it out to keep playing. But man, is all I can say. But we slept good, we rested good. Everybody's up and at it right now. But today I'm going to be focusing on Genesis chapter 34 through 40. I will say I don't have a lot of notes towards the end because a lot of it is really good stories about Abraham's seed. I mean, right now we recently talked about Isaac old in age, Jacob, Esau. We fast forwarded to Jacob and Esau having their falling out, and we're currently with Jacob's sons plural, but Yaakov. So on 34, so chapter 34 was uh, one for me to read that had me looking like, man. But long story short, a lot of brothers, but there is one of many daughters that was named. And in chapter 34, the name of the daughter is Dinah. And Dinah was essentially taken advantage of, assaulted by another people. And I believe those people were Hivites, if that makes sense. So for folks who've kind of like read through the Old Testament, when you have X amount of children, you become small little nations, and majority of the time you add its at the end. Culture, customs, always different, right? So folks, we joke about, you got the Jebusites, you got the Amorites, you got the Hivites, the Hittites, you got the Philistines or the Philistines. But anywho, one of Joseph's daughters was raped by another son of a prominent family that identify as Hivites. And their culture and custom is completely different. So in the person's mind who assaulted Dinah, his name was Shechem. He thought what he did was fine and dandy, and he went to Joseph and was like, hey, I really love your daughter. I want to be with your daughter. Can I marry her? Of course, a couple of the older brothers overhears this conversation. Now, what they don't understand is in with the Hebrews, right? Israelites, you don't do the deed until you go and get the Father's blessings, right? So apparently Hivites had a different way of doing things. So Shechem, the Hivite, didn't see nothing wrong about what he did. And my takeaway, based on like what happened in Genesis chapter 34, was Dinah's brothers got vengeance in a deceitful way. They did, if you read it, because of what Shechem, the Hivite, did to Dinah. And my takeaway was this is clearly an example of when customs and culture collide. So going back to Hivites, assuming, oh, I can just take what I want, and then if I really like it, I can go and ask the person who owns it or who's responsible for him or her, can I have it? Doesn't work that way with the Israelites, right? So we see oftentimes that Jacob, not Joseph, Jacob is a mild mannered man. I said Joseph earlier, but this is Jacob and his 12 sons. But what we learn in chapter 34 is Simeon and Levi, two of Jacob's oldest sons, they are about that life. They do not play about their sister Dinah. So what I'll do is like highlight a few of the verses in chapter 34 that I highly encourage you to read through. But chapter 34, 1 through 5, it starts with, now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and violated her. His soul was strongly attracted to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the young woman and spoke kindly to the young woman. So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, get me this young woman as a wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with his livestock in the field, so Jacob held this peace until they came. So dad, Jacob, already knew what happened, right? He heard about it. He clearly feels some way about it, but you all remember Jacob's countenance is mild-mannered. I'm sure he knows his sons, which is why it said he held his peace until they arrived, right? And of course, Simeon, Levi, Reuben, and them, they learn what happens. And jumping down to verse 13, it says, but the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, and spoke deceitfully because he had defiled Dinah, their sister. So the sons are old enough to be a part of the conversation, right? Jacob was keeping his peace, trying to be chill because Hamor has come with Shechem and them to say, hey, we want to become one with you all, right? We've already essentially sharing space or area together. Let my people become your people, like the cultural custom of what they think is right from Hivites to share to Israelites. And then the sons of Jacob was like, okay, but this is the condition. So verse 19, it says, so the young man did not delay to do this thing because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. He was more honorable than all the household of his father. So they're referring to Shechem. What Jacob and his sons told them to do, like, okay, y'all want to be one family. You want me to give you my daughter. Y'all are Hivites and Israelites. The custom is to be circumcised, right? This is a covenant. This is something that's special and significant. So every male in your household, including your servants, including all your livestock, like circumcise everyone and everything was the agreement. And then they said, when you do that, yeah, we'll give you Dinah and our families will become one. But they were speaking deceitfully. So again, the picture of Shechem operating in his culture and custom, he doesn't realize what he did was wrong, but it still is not going to take away from the retribution, right? And I saw he was more honorable than all the house in, his father's household. He went to go see and go about it the right way, again, from his culture and custom. Not realizing it's not how you do it. Now, verse 22 is the condition. So only on this condition will a man consent to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. All right, so that is the agreement. They, I don't know, handshake. I believe word was always bond when there was conversations about coming together. All right, so verse 26, 25, 26. Now it came to pass on the third day when they were in pain. So this is the Hivites, Shechem's people, every male. Now it came to pass on the third day when they were in pain from being circumcised, because all of them went and did it that very day. And this is 3 days later. Two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came boldly upon the city and killed all the males. And they killed Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house and went out. And then it jumps to verse 30 because again, Jacob, mild mannered. Clearly, Simeon and Levi, they don't play. They lied. All right. Jacob was there probably assuming that everything was going to be done right when the conversation was had, but killed every male in the household of the Hivites. And then verse 30 says, Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, You have troubled me by making me obnoxious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And since I am few in number, they will gather themselves together against me and kill me. I shall be destroyed, my household and I. So Jacob is nervous as all get out. He knows he is clearly outnumbered. He also understands Hivites have alliances with all the other ites. You saw the Perizzites and the Canaanites, and they're in the land that God has promised. Canaan is the land that God has promised. So they're in the area that's promised to them up to 3-4 generations, right? It's the covenant, it is what it is. Jacob stressed. But this is how the chapter ends, which had me like, oh, they could care less. But they said to Jacob, so this is Simeon and Levi, but they said, should he treat our sister like a harlot? Like, I hear you, Pops, but we don't feel bad about what we did. Like, you think it's okay? So that's how that chapter ends. Again, that was my takeaway of that chapter is clearly an example of when customs and cultures collide. And then moving on to chapter 35 of Genesis, 1 through 9, my takeaway was God protects his own and to be obedient and trust him fully. And verse 5 is kind of like what really jumped out. But this is Jacob returning to Bethel. And I believe Bethel is the part of the land in the land of Canaan, the land that is promised to him and his family, right? Where he laid, I think where Isaac laid his wife to rest. But I'm going to read to see so I don't mix things up. But chapter 35, 1 through 9 reads, Then God said to Jacob, because this is right after they did what they did, mind you, right? To Shechem, Hamor, Hivites families. Then God said to Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, and make an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau your brother. Verse 2, And Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, Put away the foreign gods that are among you, purify yourselves, and change your garments. Verse 3, Then let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make an altar there to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and has been with me in the way which I have gone. Verse 4, So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods which were in their hands, and the earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree, which was by Shechem. Verse 5, And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were all around them, and they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. Verse 6, So Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, which is in the land of Canaan, he and all the people who were with him. And he built an altar there and called the place El Bethel, because there God appeared to him when he fled from the face of his brother. Verse 8, Now Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried below Bethel under the terebinth tree. So the name of it was called Alon Bakuth. And then verse 9, Then God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Padan Aram and blessed him. So Jacob in his mind was so uneasy about what was to come based on what Simeon and Levi did. But God protected as he always does, right? And that's why 1 through 9, I was like, God's going to protect his own. So be obedient, trust him fully. And then I did kind of talk about wondering, I don't talk about it, but I wrote the note. I wondered how God appeared to Israel or Jacob. So y'all remember Jacob wrestled with angel of God or God himself, and he received the name Israel, right? And then he was reminded of the promise of being from a line of the father of many nations, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right? Then Jacob has 12 sons. So that was 35, 1 through 9. And then what I love when you do read through 10 through 15, me questioning, like, I wonder how God, appeared, because as you read, the Lord God always reveals himself however he desires. But this was a time where it wasn't specified how it has been in the past. Pillar of fire, burning bush, roaring wind, still small voice, right? But 10 through 15 is when God, well, 9 through is when God appears to Jacob. So again, I said earlier, verse 9, then God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Padan Aram and blessed him. And God said to him, your name is Jacob. Your name shall not be called Jacob anymore, but Israel shall be your name. So he called his name Israel. Verse 11, and God said to him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall proceed from you, and kings shall come from your body. Verse 12, the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac I give to you, and to your descendants after you I give this land. Verse 13, then God went up from him in the place where he talked with him. 14, so Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him. So God talked with Jacob, or Israel. Set up a pillar of stone, and he poured a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it. And Jacob called the name of the place where God spoke with him Bethel. Y'all know, like, fast forward our culture custom, when people pour out a little drink in remembrance, like to honor. That's what I thought about when I saw verse 14. That's what Jacob did. I'm going to pour a drink offering to honor what God has shared with me. I'm going to pour oil on it. It's anointed. It's good to go. But that's kind of like what stood out to me with the beginning of Jacob being stressed and worried because what Simeon and Levi did, to how he continues to protect and provide and remind him of the promise, right? And then 35 verse 19 is where I kind of like do a jump. So 35 and 19, Rachel ends up passing away in hard labor, right? And what I wrote was, Rachel died due to a hard labor, birthing her last son, whom she named Benoni. Like, that was the last thing that she stated. Now, Benoni means son of my sorrow. However, Jacob ended up saying his name shall be called Benjamin, which means son of the right hand. So Hebrew folk, there you go. But sad reality, she passed away birthing the 12th son, baby boy Benjamin. And if you remember, Rachel was the one whom Jacob loved more than Leah. And that was not necessarily because of anything. It just is what it is. But Rachel also struggled to bear children, right? And then God opened her womb for Joseph. Jealousy came in, right, with all of the other sons at the time that were birthed across the two handmaids or servants that Leah and Rachel said, make them your wife, bear some children, right? And then jealousy between Leah and Rachel, who were sisters. So Rachel only had Joseph and Benjamin, right? Okay, so that's what I wrote there. But Rachel died due to a hard labor. She died in Bethlehem while they were on their way to Ephrath. And Ephrath is, like, you'll see a lot of times, she didn't die in Bethlehem. She died on her way to Bethlehem, which they called Ephrath. And that's, again, Genesis chapter 35, verse 19. Now, I'm jumping to Genesis 35, verse 28, because another death in the family, and because of just how I've been Esau, when his wife Rebecca essentially told Jacob, pretend to be Esau, right? He out got your father said he don't know how long he gonna be here. His eyesight real bad. He can't see too good. And I know what God told me when y'all was born into the world, that the younger would serve the other. So, go find his clothes he been wearing, and I'm gonna get it right. Get the goat's hair. We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it seem like you are Esau, so you can get the firstborn's blessing. But that's that. That's what I wrote from reading 35:28. Move into Genesis chapter 36. What you'll notice a lot through the Bible, like a good bit of the Old Testament, it always honors family. So Genesis 36 is giving a whole rundown of Esau and his family. And it means something if it's written, right? But what I wrote there was Esau's other name is Edom. And when you continue to read Isaac, Jacob, and Jacob is a twin, so we're focusing on Esau. But Esau, other name is Edom, and Genesis chapter 36 is his family lineage, genealogy. But what I wrote on 6 through 7 was Esau went his own way and is the father of the Edomites. So y'all know for a while Jacob and Esau just was not on the same page based on Esau being frustrated with Jacob's deception to get Esau's promise, right? Firstborn promise. And Esau was really feeling some type of way because he had already given his birthright in the name of being hungry prior to. So Jacob had to flee because his mom Rebecca was like, "Yeah, you gotta go. He's trying to get when Esau say he get his hands on you, he's gonna kill you." But fast forward, peace was made between the two over a good bit of years, right? Jacob apologized, so they're on talking terms, which is why they were both able to say goodbye, right, to their dad and get him buried in his homeland. But 6 and 7, I want to read because my note was Esau went his own way and is the father of the Edomites. But then Esau took his wives, his sons, his daughters, and all the persons of his household, his cattle and all his animals, and all his goods, which he had gained in the land of Canaan, and went to a country away from the presence of his brother Jacob. For their possessions were too great for them to dwell together, and the land where they were strangers could not support them because of their livestock. So that's why Esau left. And even on a deeper level, that wasn't Esau's land. It wasn't promised to him. It was promised to Jacob and his people. Now, technically, you could say, well, he's still the people, but you can only stay around each other but so long when you both continue to prosper exponentially. So he went his own way. Now, when he went his own way, we learned that Esau has another name, Edom. So wherever culture, customs, however that works, right? And then we also learned that Edom or Esau put the title chief in front of all his sons' names. Now, I don't know if y'all know like whom Esau married, but if you jump to 15 through, you'll see where it says chief. Fast forward culture now, when we think about whose people utilize the title and term chiefs, if you have lived in America for a long time, you automatically think about native folks, indigenous to the land of North America or the continent, right? But if you are of culture and customs of understanding Africa and the many countries in Africa, there are many chiefs in the land of Africa, and there's other spaces as well where you'll see that title, right? But that's what I thought about, and like I had a side note because I started seeing the word king a lot, where I had to go back to Genesis 14 because that's the first time that I recall seeing the title king in the Bible. But jumping to from Genesis 36 to 37, Genesis 37 1 through 3 is when enters Joseph. Joseph is the beloved son, Jacob's favorite son, right? And Joseph has a gift. So I'm going to read 1 through 3 and then I'll kind of get into some of the pieces. But I highly encourage y'all to kind of read 37 all the way through because it's a beautiful story. And there's a lot of really good things in it that can teach us about how we navigate our day-to-day and family relationships, community relationships, workplace relationships, whole nine. But Joseph 37, chapter 37, verse 1 reads, Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. This is a history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. So, maid servants who became wives, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to his father. So Joseph telling on people, y'all. But now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. All right. And y'all know the tunic of many colors caused some jealousy. But if you read 4 and 5, that's what you'll see. His brothers saw that his father loved him more, loved Joseph more, and they hated Joseph because of it. And they didn't speak kindly to him because of it. So that is what kind of sets up the whole story for what's to come later on. But Joseph out here telling on people, right? And what you notice as you continue to read is Israel relies on Joseph to be the person to report the things that's happening out here in these streets. And you see that when you fast forward to 37 verse 12 through 14. But again, it gets real at this point because his brothers essentially conspire against him because they're tired of Joseph. They're jealous of Joseph. They hate Joseph because they see the dynamic relationship he has with his dad that they don't have, right? So 12 says, then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. So he said to him, here I am. Then he said to him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me. So he sent him out to the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem. So Shechem is a place. Shechem was also a name prior to in Genesis 34 for folks who are like, I thought Shechem got. He did. But it's also a place. Just like you'll notice that folks named their children after places. Canaan is a land as well. Land of Canaan. Canaan was also a name. But I say all that to say Jacob trusted Joseph to always bring report. So while we see it as him telling, he was being obedient to his dad. But what we learn after this part is what his older brothers decide to do. Like they're thinking through how they want to get rid of Joseph. But if you read all the way through 37, you will see how the other older brothers talk amongst each other because they're mad about him telling them about his dreams and how the dreams are coming off as like they're going to be bound to Joseph and serving Joseph, and they're older, right? So you got a lot of ego in the mix. It's like, who was my younger brother trying to tell me what I'm going to be doing? All right. But again, God has given Joseph a gift. He probably doesn't all the way understand it yet, but he's definitely excited about the dreams and visions, and he's constantly sharing it, which is not necessarily helpful to people who are already jealous of you, right? And I know that's a word there for some people, but it was God's will, and it ended up meaning for his good. So to Genesis 21 all the way through, I would say like 27 is where you see a subset of brothers saying, oh, let's just kill him. Take the tunic off his body, and say, hey, the wolves, the dogs, somebody got him, daddy. We so sorry. We tried to protect him, but we couldn't. And then you have Judah, one of his brothers was like, what profit is it going to be to kill him and lie about it, right? Instead, let's just sell him to the Ishmaelites. Now, y'all know Ishmaelites are all family, right? Because Abraham had Isaac and Ishmael. But they're still clearly their own people. They are Egyptians doing their own thing, living their own life. Now, Ishmael is a mix of Egyptian because his mom was an Egyptian, and then Hebrew Israelite because his dad, Abraham. But fast forward, they cousins, right? But they might not be cool cousins, which is why Judah essentially was like, let's just take him over there, right? He can be enslaved by them. Long story short, they rough him up, throw him in a pit because the older brothers are like, y'all tripping. It was Reuben, it was Simeon, all the ones like the first four before you get to Joseph, right? Who's the fifth or sixth, Judah. But long story short, they threw him in the pit, and Reuben wasn't around when the ultimate decision to do what was done to Joseph was done. So Reuben came back thinking, I'm gonna get my brother up out this mess, but I don't want to act like I'm not, like I'm on his side with the rest of my brothers, because that's gonna look messy on me, and I don't know what they're gonna do to me. Reuben is the oldest, but talking about somebody stressing. Verse 29, Reuben went back to that pit. His brother Joseph was not in that pit. Unbeknownst to him, the other brothers made sure he was sold, right? And they took him off to Egypt, right? So he is now an enslaved 17-year-old Hebrew on his way to Egypt. And that's how that goes. But y'all got to read 37 to see it all the way through and kind of read through how the brothers decided to do what they did. Now, God still protects and look out, because that's what God does. But Genesis chapter 38 is quite a story to me. I wrote, as far as a takeaway, honor is honorable. And all of 38 is essentially highlighting how Judah, so there's a subsection that says Judah and Tamar. But verse 7 is something that I highlighted, and it says, But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him. If we've learned anything about the Lord God Almighty, he really doesn't play. When I tell you I'm so grateful for grace because of the measure of faith that he's blessed me with, but I highlighted that because Judah took a wife for her. Long story short, Tamar was, I'm trying to see if Tamar was sister or, so Judah and Tamar, let me see, make sure I'm not getting it mixed up. Got you. Okay, so Judah and Tamar is a subsection of the story. Verse 7 is going into, Tamar is originally betrothed to someone else. They died, right? So Judah says to his other son, because was killed due to being wicked, we still got to be fruitful and multiply. Onan, that's the name of brother, Onan. So I'm going to need for you to marry your brother's wife. Culture, customs, we don't understand it, right? And then essentially continue to be fruitful and multiply. Now, Onan understood that in his mind, this baby's not going to be mine, because I know in order to get married, you have to consummate marriage. And I know that my brother is already, done the deed. So you'll see Onan, they say, spill his seed. So he didn't consummate appropriately. And y'all know what God did if you pay attention and continue to read. But long story short, Tamar was told, when my third son get of age, because Onan spilled the seed, and God don't like that. So God said, you got to go. He killed him. But long story short, Judah said, I got a third son, but he's not of age. Tamar, wait patiently. And when he becomes of age, then this, I want to keep my promise. Y'all are married. Y'all will be fruitful and multiply. And the legacy, the nation will continue to grow. I believe, if we fast forward, I believe that Judah forgot. And Tamar did what Tamar had to do. If you read all the way to 38, some time goes by. Tamar sees that baby boy is of age, but Judah did not go and tell Shelah, so baby boy Shelah, to go and marry Tamar. I think he forgot. But long story short, Tamar dressed up and pretended to be somebody she wasn't out here in these streets. And Judah decided, go to your room, sweetheart. Judah decided that he was going to see if she wanted to do something that night. Y'all got to read 38. So Tamar says, okay. Tamar know who she is. She's veiled. She is coming off as a harlot. And then a negotiation ensues between Judah and Tamar, who he assumes is just a high price harlot. And they negotiate, and she gets collateral to hold on to, because he was like, I can get you a goat. I can pay you for your services, ma'am. And then they do what they do. But fast forward, she gets pregnant by who should have been her father-in-law. And word gets back that she's out here not being faithful and doing things right. And then Judah's like, oh, hold on, like we got to handle this. And then she essentially provides the collateral that she held on to, because he's like, I'm trying to return the goat to the person, and he puts two and two together. I couldn't find the person that I needed to pay for the services they rendered. I find out from another person that a baby is growing, and Tamar, and I know Tamar isn't married, so I don't know why she did that. Then I realized, oh, got it. So Tamar went and did it her way, based on her not believing, or sometimes not being patient enough for Judah to be true to his word. But Genesis 38, I said that is quite a story. But honor is honorable, because they was about to stone her, come from her head, because you don't do that back in the day. But honor is honorable. I went the long way to say that. Genesis 39, I highlighted reading the importance of 2 through 6. So 39 refocuses on Joseph. Joseph is enslaved in the land of Egypt. And 2 through 6, Joseph ends up in an officer of Pharaoh's place, Potiphar. And he was brought down and taken from the Ishmaelites to go to Egypt. And then verse 2 says, the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Verse 3, and his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all he did prosper in his hand. Verse 4, so Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he made him overseer of his house and all that he had put under his authority. So Joseph found favor, was given authority, because they trusted and knew that God was with him. Verse 5, so it was from the time that he had made him overseer of his house, so Potiphar is made Joseph overseer of the house and all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. So making sure Joseph maintained that power, right? And the blessing of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Verse 6, then he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. Now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. And this is when it's always something, because verse 6 ends like that. So Joseph is household manager. He's essentially governor, and you'll see the language governor in the New King James Version. He went into Egypt enslaved, a slave, right? And he essentially became the governor, because folks saw God is with this man, and he's blessing every little thing you do. And the more they gave him and trusted him with, kept blessing, and then their households was blessed. So Potiphar, the officer of Pharaoh, was like, man, look, I'm gonna trust you with all my stuff, because I know it's good with you. Like, you got God on your side. And the only thing Potiphar knew about was the bread that he ate, which means all of his things were not managed by him at all. Talking about trust. But the way that it ended, now Joseph was handsome in form and appearance. I wrote, it's always something but God. So for y'all who know the story, the master's wife, so Pharaoh's wife, was liking what she was seeing every time she saw Joseph. And she kept asking Joseph, come be with me, come lay with me, to the point where Joseph had to run away on many of occasions, because she was low-key stalking that man, trying to get with him. Despite him saying, it ain't right, I know whose wife you are, I cannot do that, look, everything I got, you're not about to put jeopardize. But long story short, verses 7 through 10 is when she just didn't like being refused. Like, consistent, he kept refusing her. And then, long story short, she didn't like it, right? So you'll see that in 2 through 10. And then she decides to tell a story when you read verses 11 through 14. When she got upset because she got close enough to him to think that, okay, it's about to go down this time, she ripped off a piece of the cloth. Like, she just was going to try to take what she wanted, y'all. They out here. But long story short, he ran away, and she decided to concoct a lie. He tried to take advantage of me. He tried to assault me, and I had to scream and run for my life. Joseph is not to be trusted. Now, this is the wife of Pharaoh, so you know nobody's not about to question her word. Fast forward, She straight up goes to in verse 14 and says that she called to the man of her house and spoke to them, saying, "See, he has brought in to us a Hebrew to mock us." And as you keep reading, she gonna say he tried to assault me, right? And I got the proof. But we know the real story when you read. He tried to get away. He got a little too lax. I guess he thought he was in control. And she got a piece of his clothes. And then she concocted this story. And that ended up getting him thrown into jail. Because it was like, man, we don't trusted this Hebrew man. And as y'all keep reading, there's a lot of distrust between Egyptians and Hebrews, and it's things that you just don't do. They're not even supposed to be mixing. They can't even eat together. It's considered an abomination for Hebrews and Egyptians to eat together at the same table, and y'all see that as you keep reading. But long story short, y'all, she didn't like being denied. She concocted a story, and no matter what he tried to say, it didn't matter. But she kept using the word Hebrew like it was a slur. Y'all don't sent this Hebrew up here to mock us. But verse 17, it said, "Then she spoke to him with words like these, saying, The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came in to mock me." So she kept saying it until they essentially threw him in jail. But that was my takeaway. Like, it's always something, but God is still good. So even when he ended up being put in jail, the nation he represented as a Hebrew being mocked, God continued to look out. And wrapping up in Genesis chapter 40 is where you see God continue to look out and bless. And I also loved in verse 15 of chapter 40, it says that Joseph knows who he is. It reads, "For indeed I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews." Like, he knows he's considered a Hebrew. He doesn't see an issue with being a Hebrew. But what he tells one of the persons who end up being enslaved that used to be a servant, it was like a butler and a baker. They did something wrong. Pharaoh and them enslaved them. But Joseph interprets their dreams, right? And one of them is to be restored back into Pharaoh's household and continue to do good and be good. The other, Pharaoh comes for his head. Literally, he kills him. But he says to one of them, I don't know if remember, I think it was the butler, when you get back there, please speak good on me. Tell them what I'm capable of doing, right? And God continues to look out and bless. But that was kind of like my takeaways from the whole, from chapter 34 to chapter 40. Again, I always appreciate y'all checking in, comments, questions, so that I can continue to read back. We can break bread. If y'all want to jump on and we can dialogue, I'm down for that. But next time around, we'll be wrapping up the book of Genesis. Chapters 41 through 50 is the last chapters of the book of Genesis. Until then, continue to make it a great day. Take care of yourselves. If you're watching the WNBA game, please enjoy it. I don't know which side y'all on. It doesn't matter to me as long as it's a great game. I low-key always ride for the underdog. So we're going to see what the Lynx are going to do, because that first game, whoa. Anywho, be well, and I'll catch y'all on next weekend. Take care.